I got to use the new Sony A7S III. To give you context of how I used this camera, it wasn't an official like, hey Chris, we're from Sony, we want you to test out the camera. I didn't get this like official email. I literally like hijacked Matty Hapoya's shoot and got the chance to use it through his video. So Matty got the chance to use that camera. He actually used me wake surfing as an example of showcasing the slow motion and a couple other things like high dynamic range. And while being on shoot with him, I got to shoot video of him. So that's my experience of using this camera, just so we're clear. It's limited, but that camera's great. I've owned the original Sony A7S, the A7S II, so I'm very excited about the A7S III, A9, Sony A7R III, and the Sony A7 III. And I also own a ton of G Master glass, specifically 90mm, 12 to 24, 100 to 470 to 250mm, 24mm, 35mm, the Sony A7 III. I also own the 85mm, which I believe Lizzie has somewhere jammed in a bag. I own the RX100 Mark V. I own a lot of Sony equipment. I bought all of this myself. None of this is sponsored. I don't have any affiliation with Sony. I buy their gear because they make very useful tools. So that's my experience with shooting with Sony. I'm gonna actually go home and do some errands and tell you a little bit about my experience. And also the office is jam-packed today and they gave me 10 minutes to shoot this segment. I forgot to mention something. I like stormed out, I'm like, I'm done, I'm not done yet. I do want to mention that my only experience with this camera was with shooting, so I didn't actually get to play with the footage, see what it was like in post. So this is gonna be like the first initial impressions of what it's like to shoot with this camera, hold this camera, no footage. If you guys do wanna go check out the footage that I shot, you can click Matty's video here or in the links below and see the dynamic range and all the other things that I'm sure he's gonna be talking about. This is my Scottish Fold kitten, Luna. Now, you know what's really funny about her? She's very talkative. This is like a very normal trait for Scottish Fold kittens. She makes trill sounds. I'm always trying to see if I can actually get a trill sound recorded on camera. Do you want to tell everybody what's up? Trill to them. Do it. Trill. Please. I promise I'll get to cameras in just a second. Trill for me. Okay. Wait, sometimes if I put her down, she makes it. Okay, Sony A7S III. Let's talk about the camera body. So when I first picked up this camera when we were on the boat, first thing I noticed is it felt really, really good in your hands. Now, if anybody's used like Sony products in the past, the one thing that Sony never really nailed was like the ergonomics of a camera. I remember the original Sony A7S felt like a toy. The grip just felt weird. Like I was like, do I have to be a child to hold this camera to use it? As somebody who uses this camera every single day to make YouTube videos, commercial shoots, I want something that feels like an extension of my hand, my eye, that feels good while I'm working rather than like, oh, this could slip out of my hand while I'm trying to get a shot. So Sony actually nailed the marks in terms of the ergonomics of this camera. Now moving to one of the most crucial updates to this camera, the record button is now right on top, just below like the shutter button. So you can actually press the shutter button, and if you want to get a video clip, you can press the video record button right behind it. Now, we finally got it, the flip out screen. It's really, really good. It's a touch screen, flip out screen, which is really nice. So for vloggers out there, you got the full rotation to be able to vlog with yourself. Key part, especially for storytelling in 2020. The other part is if you want to get low angles, you can flip it up. And the other benefit, and this is something I used to experience all the time with my old Sony cameras, is that I used to have to put screen protectors on the screen all the time because they'd always get damaged in my camera bag. I like to put a lot of things in there while I'm traveling, and sometimes I'd scratch the screen, which is like a super expensive repair. Now with the new flip out screen, you can flip it in and protect your screen when you're not using your camera. The last little part that I'd like to note, which is more part of like the software element side to it, but it's very crucial, is that actually when you press the record button, it puts a red box on the outer part of the frame. So like when you press record, literally imagine the frame right now, there'd be like a red box right here. So you actually know you're recording versus just the little spot in the corner that would go from like green on standby to like record, now you're actually recording. And if you missed it, which I've done in the past, I shot a wedding like a few years ago, and I actually missed the shot of the bride walking down the aisle with her dad, and she was furious. Now with this little like red box on the outer part of our frame, there's like a lower chance that we'll miss the shot or miss the record button. Things like this happen all the time, but I think it's just another signifier so that hopefully we're doing our jobs properly. Last little hardware part before we jump into more of like the menu system. Sony's actually introduced like like a new microphone, or I think they introduced it like a few months ago. I don't know the exact model name, I'll put it right here. But what it is an electronic microphone that connects through like the hot shoe mount at the top. And why I love this is there's no longer cables running to like the mic jack. So I have a Sony A7R III. I brought it to Switzerland earlier this year. And I was trying to get like on location audio, and wouldn't you guess, I got a little bit of water on it and it damaged the microphone jack. So my current camera that I shoot YouTube videos with does not have a working mic jack. So this camera, the Sony A7S III, and I think the Sony A7R IV, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, now use this new microphone. There's no cables. It's a smaller footprint than the actual Rode microphone. So this is like a great investment if you're into vlogging and wanting to capture on location sound. This camera just feels like the perfect size with like all the attachments even on it. Luna. Oh, she made the sound. All right, let's talk about the focusing system. That was the thing that I noticed first. Now I currently shoot with a Sony A7R III. My experience between that camera and the new Sony A7S III, especially when it came to video, is like a much better focusing system. So as I mentioned, the screen that flips out is actually touch screen, and there's a touch focusing system built into it, which is way more responsive than I've seen in the past on other Sony systems. So literally I had Maddie, he was wake surfing. What I did was like, all right, well, let's just track Maddie. So I tapped Maddie on the screen, a little box came around him and it tracked him while he was surfing. So on the wave, let's imagine this is the frame. Maddie's surfing here and the whole box is actually tracking him as he goes along. Then Maddie fell off the wave, so he started going back and the box just kept following him until his little head popped down in the water. The subject tracking is like way better, way more advanced. That's a huge thing for me because I always found that focusing can get so awkward sometimes, especially when you're shooting video. The fact that we can now just like tap the subject, follow the subject. This is like game changing, especially if you're in like a running gun situation, or for our instance, like we're YouTubers and we're trying our best to do everything under the radar and quickly. This is just like a better focusing system for like the modern day videographer. Okay, frame rates. This is another thing that we've all been asking for and Sony delivered on. So we have 4K, 120 frames a second, no crop, and it looks gorgeous. And one thing that we've been doing on this channel in the last little while has been shooting all our videos in 4K because that's the modern workflow that we're trying to adapt to. So now having access to higher frame rates like 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, and even 240 frames per second in full HD. So I'm super stoked on these new frame rates, but most importantly, 4:2:2 color and 10-bit, which means that when you get into post-production, we have a lot more flexibility. Now, I mentioned at the beginning part of this video, I haven't had the chance to play with any of this footage yet, so hopefully down the line when I actually get my hands on this camera, I'll be able to see like how far we can push this stuff in post-production. But based on those specs and talking with other people in the color grading space, this should be a huge step up in terms of post-production when working with Sony systems. My biggest beef that I've always had in the past is like S-Log2 and S-Log3 have always been kind of like really annoying to color grade and work with and try to get like really nice, decent, high dynamic range. Bye. All right, so a big question that I'm sure a lot of you guys are asking is like, does this camera shoot RAW? Yes and no. It does not shoot internal RAW, and I don't want you to dismiss this camera because it doesn't shoot internal RAW. Now, what the camera does have is full sensor 16-bit RAW output. So you match this with probably most likely an Atomos recorder.
Confirmed, we will be seeing 4K ProRes RAW on the Ninja 5.
To get the ProRes RAW file so that you actually can work with this in the RAW format in post-production. Now, a big thing that I was really excited about to hear is that it has 15 stops of dynamic range in S-Log2 and S-Log3. A little like caveat that I want to mention, while I was shooting with Maddie, I noticed like the highlights like looked really, really good, especially with like the S-Log assist. The new monitoring LUT, at least that I saw on this camera, looked really good. It looked more even and didn't look like a fake monitoring. So that's like an added bonus, is that the monitoring LUT and the assistant LUT that you turn on looks really, really good while you're shooting. I'm gonna take a quick breather because the highlights just popped in. I do want to mention like a small note. So 15 stops of dynamic range, to make that like comparable to what we know in the industry. That's what like Red cameras shot like 2 or 3 years ago. When you saw that Red image look, it's because it had such high dynamic range. Now with like S-Log2 and S-Log3, they're claiming that it's 15 stops of dynamic range. Again, I have not seen it, but that's what they're stating. And if the specs are true, 15 stops of dynamic range should be like a comparable image to like a professional level camera, like a Red camera. Okay, I'm gonna just like end off on like a little bit of how I've been thinking in the last little while. So obviously, exciting times for cameras right now. Canon R5, Sony A7S III, and the other camera companies. So Canon R5, 8K RAW, I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Basically, they delivered a camera that like blew everybody out of the water. And I was like, okay, well, am I gonna switch again? Because I used to shoot with like a 7D a couple years ago that I switched to Sony because I love Sony, and the A7S was like the reason why I got sold on Sony and started investing in this like whole camera system. And I'm like, do I have to switch back again? I already have all these lenses. I liked being the Sony guy. So R5 gets dropped, and then I finally found out all the specs about the Sony A7S III, and I was, to be honest, at first when we had like the conference call, I remember like texting like Donna did it, and I was like, I'm a little underwhelmed. And then I actually got to use it. You'll hear about all the stats and you're like, oh, that sounds really good. And for like most people, it's not the most like impressive, like 8K RAW. When you actually look at the specs of this camera, they finally delivered on all the things that people were actually asking for. I really want like good focusing. I want really good codecs. 422 color was like a big part of it. 10-bit, like these are the things that videographers want. To have a camera that is gonna meet all my video needs and not fail on that is like so crucial, because you never want to be in a situation, based on what I've heard about the overheating, and your camera just like not working, and you're like trying to get the shot and you can't use it because it needs to cool down. I'm not trying to like put flack on any camera companies. I'm just saying that as a user, as someone who's self-invested in all these camera companies without being paid for any endorsement, I just want tools that work, that allow me to create. And for me, the Sony A7S, especially as someone who's invested in a lot this, has met the mark. I loved using it. Maddie, thank you for letting me play with this camera. I think I'm in love. Again, I want to like buy it. I think I'm gonna go buy it after this, because the announcement should have been yesterday based on the release of this video. I've loved the Sony system for a long time, and I think they've hit the mark with this camera from my first initial impression. If you guys like this video, please press like. It actually makes a difference. Subscribe, hit the bell to be notified for future videos. And as we always do on this channel, ASMR outro. Ooh, let's see if we can get Luna to do an ASMR outro. Do an outro, please. Say something. Say something. Hit the bell. Oh my God, she doesn't even like me. Okay, bye. Bye, everybody. Love you. Her eyes keep changing colors. It's crazy. Some days her eyes are like super blue. Right now they're like really green. Does anybody know things about cats and like eye color? Does it say anything about like their mood or personality? You know, like mood rings where you wear and it's red and you're like, I'm angry. Her eyes don't get red that often. It's only when she's possessed.